Khalif Browder was a 16-year-old black youth who became the victim of an injustice system that failed him. He was arrested for the theft of a book bag, and even though he was innocent, they jailed him. His mother couldn't afford to post the $3,000 bail, so he was sent to Rikers prison. And even though he'd done nothing wrong, there was no one there to listen. He was thrust into the brutality of a system that only promised to destroy him, stolen from a family who loved him and now could no longer enjoy him. Refusing to plead guilty to a crime that he had never committed, it was into a violent insanity that he was forcibly admitted. And every time he appeared in court, the prosecution claimed they weren't ready to go to trial. So back to prison system he was sent as the clock's hands spun around the dial. Beaten, starved, and left in solitary, you wondered where he found the strength to demand his rights. When a plea deal would have gotten him out faster, but he would have lost the most important fight. The fight to retain his truth, not to be labeled by the injustice system. And if you hoped to find some truth in the courts, it was clear they hadn't any wisdom. His young face without a mask, so the truth was clearly there for all to see, that he would not plead guilty to something that he had made a decision not to be. And that decision cost him plenty as psychosis formed inside his solitary cell, plucked from the life that was ripped away from him and then thrown into this unholy hell. His 16-year-old brain trying to make its most significant changes inside this house insane, at a time when he should be exploring his identity and not struggling with a torturous pain. The effects of solitary confinement screaming at him in as much as 14 months alone, until the weight he felt upon him became more than a boulder than a stone. The crushing weight of the prejudice that automatically defined him as a criminal, a legal system that so overtaxed any efforts to help him were only minimal. A mother crying all the way along a long and lonely trip to see him. The real thief counting his blessings because he had escaped and would never be him. 3 long years he hung on, fighting in a system designed to defeat him. Attacked by inmates and guards, he continued on even though they beat him. The witness to the crime long gone, so there was really no case against him. Just a legal system bent on destroying him, which only then incensed him. And when they'd done enough damage to him, they finally let him go. But he was not the same young boy because they brought him to a depressive low. He had been lost inside a prison system. His true identity had been taken. And it never mattered if he'd been innocent because he had been mistaken. He felt lost in a world he'd left where everyone had moved ahead, where he'd been removed from his life and left in solitary instead, where post-traumatic stress had settled in, leaving him nervous and afraid, fearful that he could be incarcerated again if another mistake were made, forever looking over his shoulder just in case injustice was behind, no longer holding on to belief that there was anyone that could be kind, a suit launched against the powers that be by those acting on his behalf, because the psychosis and paranoia had taken away his ability to laugh. A young man so humble, he wondered aloud who he really was. His sense of freedom locked away because that's what solitary does. Unsure if he'd ever be truly set free from the oppression of black people, or whether the monetary settlement could offer anything other than an apology only feeble. The look of trauma that crossed his face as he talked about his incarceration, it wouldn't matter what they paid him because it would never be a fair compensation. But even before that would happen, the criminal system intervened, and so he took his own life before a new court appearance had convened, seeing nothing but a repeat of what had already barely survived, another chance for the legal system to hold him on another charge contrived. And he knew he couldn't take it because the damage had already been done. He couldn't imagine another day in jail, not even a single one. So he put a rope around his neck and jumped out his bedroom window. His mother ran upstairs to check on him because she knew that he had been low, but death had already claimed him and freed him from his internal prison, the one the system created inside of him when they locked him up in solitary and never listened. The boy without a mask and destroyed what he could be, and anyone who saw his face knew it was there for all to see. Something in his look that said there was someone special here. This was not just any boy, but truth's reflection in a mirror. The possibility still unwritten, but it was clear he was important. But nobody chose to understand what for him was another day in court meant. The 3 years of inhumanity had scarred the purity of his soul, where being beaten, starved, and isolated had finally taken its toll, where he could not face another affront the legal system chose to make. They had already taken enough of him, so what more was there to take? But I guess they wanted to take his life for just being black and young, and so he died a courageous youth, his story yet unsung. So I want to tell you what I saw in the face of Khalif Browder. I saw the face of someone special, and if you didn't hear me, I'll say it louder. His was a face without a mask in an era that hides the truth, a rarity we seldom see in a world that disrespects black youth. a shining light in all the darkness of prejudice and hate. And he would never find a savior because for him, justice came too late. And in reality, he got no justice because his killers never spent a day in jail. And even though it was their unjust crime that provided the coffin and the nail, people without any vision, because they looked at him, they could not see the young man with the open face that once shone with all that he could be. I only saw him in a documentary, but it wouldn't take a psychic to recognize that somewhere in that soul-searching face was a person that was wise. And we'll never just know who we lost in the young man driven to take his life, but it was the U.S. justice system that snuffed him out as easy as they cut his lifeline with a knife. There needs to be a day of reckoning for the life of Kalief Browder, a boy that could have been the son that made his nation prouder. The boy without a mask, the image of his face just so revealing, all the pain he suffered through that crossed his faith with so much feeling, all the thoughtfulness he expressed in the words he chose to say before the age-old U.S. prejudice finally stole his life away. How many young black precious lives do we need to be ripped from U.S. history, the direction of their lives left unknown, their gifts an unknown mystery? The loss to us left unmarked, the chance of greatness swept away, a hole left in all our souls by the price too high to pay. But I could see the mark of greatness in the face of this young man, and in some way I wish this wasn't true, that I couldn't understand, because I recognize the extent of the loss, and it makes me so damn mad, because we will never get to see all the gifts this young man had. The boy with more integrity than his country had ever known, because once again they acted like a vulture just picking at his bones. Once again they crushed the spirit and stole the gift of someone's birth and left a hole that cannot be filled in his place upon this earth.